Where did it all begin? Where did humanity start? The Mark Age archive suggests that humanity is over 200 million years old, and we are an offshoot of the elder race, who were then fifth dimensional beings, subsequently banished to Venus from Earth. Unlike the elders, we fell into matter. We took an evolutionary path that led us from being beings without form to our current state of physicality. And to some extent, the development of form has been at the expense of our spiritual development. But now, having experienced physicality, our task is to start the long journey back towards being balanced spiritual beings. And this is something we must do out of our own free will and through the impulse of unconditional love. The elder race had mastery over the third and fourth dimensional frequencies. They could travel interdimensionally and interplanetarily. They had memory recall of past life experiences and of places of existence in the solar system. Of course, they weren't physical like us, and they could maintain a form for over 250 years. Their society was truly communistic. Nobody owned anything, and their society was structured according to spiritual evolution or talent. They were giants compared to us. They had in the center of their forehead an eye. It was a unit of sight that could see beyond third dimensional earthly life and into the spiritual aspects of the soul. Could it have been that we were once like them? And could it be that we are on the road to reacquainting ourselves with these characteristics? Well, the teachings of Madame Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner and others suggest that we are in the fifth age of man, the first race being ethereal and super-spiritual, a time of gas giants when androgynous beings began slowly to descend into matter. The earth itself was very much younger, possibly a primordial soup of early life. And in the second age of man, we started to condense, becoming smaller and more physical, yet not physical enough or dense enough to be seen by the naked eye. We weren't especially intelligent in that second age. We concentrated on the development of form. In the third epoch, the Lemurian age, it was really the development of the imagination and free will that took priority. The Lemurian age, again, was not characterized by physicality. That was something that only came to be in the Atlantean era, when we also developed intellect and language. All these things developed really at the expense of cosmic spirituality. As I say, we are now in the fifth age of man, and we have become even closer to the land. We've become much more embedded in structure and physicality. But that is set to change, as now the emphasis will be on the development of consciousness, the emphasis previously having been on the development of form and free will. Pat Law, in her lecture Reincarnation and the Evolution of Consciousness, which is on the archives of the Wessex Research Group Network, talks about her past life experiences when she herself was a gas giant, one of those androgynous beings from the etheric period over 35 million years ago. What must it have been like to have been consciousness without form at a time when the earth was so young? And how deeply embedded is our evolutionary journey with that of our home planet, planet Earth? Then there are various channeled accounts of the third age of man, Lemuria. Steiner's descriptions indicate that Lemurians did not have a sense of memory, although they had thoughts and ideas. They weren't actually retained. They didn't have a language as such. They communicated instead by thought reading, which they could apply to other men, animals, plants, and even lifeless objects. As I say, it was the age of the formation of will and imagination, and here one learned to know and control the forces of nature through direct contemplation with them. But the learning was such that in man, the forces of nature were changed into the forces of will, and he found himself able to execute the actual role of nature itself. Madame Blavatsky describes the Lemurians as 7 foot tall, but again not visible to our naked human eye. But it was a misuse of Lemurian free will in relation to nature that led to great energetic imbalances, and so consequently great planetary upheavals. Lemuria, the continent of Lemuria, disappeared, and what followed was the Atlantean epoch, which lasted for many hundreds of thousands of years, until again another great planetary upheaval occurred around 10,000 years ago. During the Atlantean period, humans became more solid, the earth itself became more solid, and we actually descended to walk upon the surface of the earth. Our bones hardened, we developed limbs, and we were able to walk for the very first time. To modern humans, this would have been the very first time that we would have been visible, solid, tangible beings. The ancient Greeks and Egyptians knew of Atlantis. We know this from the writings of Plato, and we know that the Atlanteans for the first time developed language with a mantric magical power. We can, however, only speculate on what we might have been, and relish the challenge of what we might become. Interestingly, in 1864, zoologist Philip Schlatter published an article saying that the fossil records of Madagascar and India implied that both had been part of a larger continent. The channeled teachings of Steiner and others suggest that indeed there was a continent called Lemuria located between Madagascar and India. And then what of Darwinian theory, the idea that we emerged out of apes over 100,000 years ago? How does this fit with Steiner's channeled accounts of us taking proper physical form during the Atlantean period, which itself spanned more than 100,000 years? And what if we were originally from the elder race? What if our ascension to a higher state of fifth dimensional consciousness means that we begin to reacquaint ourselves with their characteristics? Imagine having mastery over matter, that is, mastery over the third and fourth dimensional frequencies. Imagine being able to travel interdimensionally and interplanetarily through the solar system. Imagine having a memory recall of past life experiences and of places in the solar system. Imagine to be able to maintain our light body for many hundreds of years. Imagine a communistic social structure based on spiritual talents and evolution. And of course that unit of sight that can see beyond third dimensional earthly life. Imagine being able to communicate telepathically. As Albert Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And maybe this is the time when we should begin to imagine once again what we might become.